Are you struggling to be taken seriously with all of your symptoms? Are you tired of being doubted about how you feel? It's time to empower yourself. When your illness is invisible, speaking up can change everything. So I'm going to show you how to effectively communicate your health struggles with people who don't seem to understand.
I can take on anything now in my life.
I'm now currently living a life in which I never thought I would be able to ever live again.
Now, I've been through years and years of trying to convince people of the things I was dealing with, of all the health issues, the brain fog, the pain, the headaches, unrelenting fatigue. I tried explaining this to friends, family, doctors, specialists, and I was always met with this brick wall where people would look at me and you could tell that there was no empathy in their eyes. And sometimes there was a hint of it. You could tell they felt bad, but you knew for a fact that they didn't actually understand what you were going through. And a lot of people ask me, Miguel, how do you get people to understand what you're dealing with? And for me, I was dealing with, at the time, I didn't know it was this thing I was dealing with, but it was a hypersensitive nervous system. Essentially, I was dealing with this issue that you couldn't really explain. You couldn't find the words to describe. It didn't even show up on a lot of the tests, the medical tests that I was going through. And so people would kind of look at me like I was crazy. I felt like the whole world was dismissing me. And there are so many things that happen to your mental state when you feel like the world is dismissing you. So me personally, I started to feel very isolated from everybody. And the more isolated I felt, the more I felt the need for other people to understand what I was going through. Because when you're trying to get sympathy and empathy or understanding from somebody and you're met with almost the opposite, almost like complete disregard, it's one of the most disheartening things that you could ever go through. And I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I remember when this first started hitting me, I was in denial a lot of the times. I was like, nope, well, the doctors say I'm fine, so I should be fine. My family's saying I'm fine, so let me just try to live my life. Maybe I'm just making a big deal out of this. So in a way, you end up gaslighting yourself, right? A part of you is saying, stop, or at least a part of me was saying, Miguel, stop, slow down. What you're feeling is real. There's something going on. And another part of my mind was saying, nothing's showing up on the tests. So I think it's all in your head, right? So I started gaslighting myself until things got so bad that I could not deny any longer that there was something very serious going on. Now, with the limited energy that I did have, I was using all that energy to try to get to explain myself to other people, to try to get them to feel what I feel or at least understand what I was going through. But what I realized is that the more I wanted people to understand what I was going through, the less effect it had. And actually, the more frustrated I got, because you can try explaining yourself over and over to somebody again, but if they're not open to it, if they've never actually been through it themselves, especially for something like CFS, chronic fatigue syndrome, or long COVID, or fibromyalgia, most people don't have any kind of reference to what that could even feel like, right? You'll tell them, hey, I feel really tired. And then they'll say something like, oh, I feel tired too. Actually, just yesterday, I was struggling to get out of bed. Maybe I have chronic fatigue syndrome, right? And I would just look at them in almost disbelief, but I had to remind myself, okay, I can't expect this person to understand what I'm going through because I don't even understand what I'm going through. I don't even believe what I'm going through is real. It almost feels like a bad dream. It almost feels like I'm living a nightmare. So it got to the point where I realized this is not healthy for me to try to convince other people of what I'm going through is real. That's what made it so difficult at first. It was very isolating, right? Because there's no one you can really talk to about this who understands. Yes, there's people who may listen, but will they understand? No. And the truth is, if you have family around and you really love them and they're close to you, or even friends, the question you have to ask yourself is, would you even want them to understand what you're going through? Would you want them to suffer and go through what you're going through right now? Probably not. So when I wrapped my head around that, I just stopped trying to explain to people what was going on. And I could vent a little bit, but I would never share these things with people with the expectation that they're going to understand and give me a solution, especially feeling like I was completely misunderstood by the rest of the world. And this is how I stood up for myself. And this is how I advocated for this seemingly invisible illness. Number one, I only had so many things I was able to do physically, but also think throughout the day. And I didn't have much capacity for doing the things that even a normal person could do. So all this extra energy I did have, I had to put it towards myself, not other people, not trying to convince them that what I was going through was real. Because even then, I started to think more long term. Okay, let's say they do understand what I'm going through. Then what? Because they don't really have the solution for this. Yes, I may feel supported. Yes, I may feel more understood. But if my ultimate goal is to get out of this and to get my life back, then I'm going to put every ounce of energy towards that one thing, not trying to convince people that what I'm going through is real. Another thing as well is I tried to find people who understood what I was going through, but who could also give me a actual step-by-step solution that worked for my situation. Now, if you search online, you're going to find a lot of bad stuff about this hypersensitive nervous system stuff, long COVID, CFS. Do not Google any solutions because it's going to end bad, right? YouTube is a much better place because you want to listen to people who have actually been through this themselves and recovered and come out the other side. So I was looking for people who had recovered, which I found a lot of that on YouTube. I found a handful of different programs online. I tried some of these programs, but it wasn't the thing that took me from surviving to thriving. So I kept searching, but it did help to know that there were people out there who understood me, right? Something that is so effective with the people CFS Recovery works with is as soon as they get into the community, all of a sudden they don't feel isolated anymore. They feel part of something. And there's this kind of shared mission that these people are now in a community of other people who are also solution focused. There's a shared mission, there's a shared vision, and also one of the biggest thing is there's a shared struggle, right? So you don't feel like you're in the trenches all alone. There's just something reassuring knowing that when you're flaring up or you're going through an adjustment period or maybe even a crash, that there is somebody else going through that. Not that you want to spread this suffering around, but just understanding that you're not the only one going through it, that helped so much. So when you find a community that is filled with other people who understand your situation, number one, who empathize with your situation, right? They feel for you because they've been through it themselves. But number three, they're also moving forward in their recovery journeys. You can use that as an example to pull yourself forward in recovery. So for me, the person who made the biggest difference in my recovery was my doctor, right? I just needed that one person to not only believe in me, but also give me the solution and give me some kind of action plan. Somebody to believe in me wholeheartedly that what I was going through was real and they also had a solution, right? And once I had that, I latched onto that. Everything my doctor said, I listened to it and I really tried to apply it and implement it because there wasn't a lot of hope. There wasn't a lot of beacons of light, not a lot of things that would give me specific direction on how to recover up until I got to that point. So when I met him and he was a very positive influence on me and he showed me the solutions, I latched onto it. So those are the kind of things you want to put your energy towards, the things that pull you forward in recovery versus trying to drag other people on this path with you and get them to understand. Again, sure, these people may be your family and they may be your friends, but unless they've been in your shoes, they will never, ever understand what you're going through. They may understand some of it. They may understand that, yes, you're going through a dark time. It feels like an impossible task. They may understand that to a degree you feel very lonely, but they'll never actually feel and be able to relate to what you're currently feeling, right? Unless they've been in your shoes. So you want to be very mindful of your energy. Where are you directing that energy to, right? Every ounce of energy you have, put it towards yourself. And that doesn't mean you have to go do something with this energy physically. It could be as simple as using that energy to help you implement brain retraining, to help you do the brain retraining for chronic pain if you have chronic pain, give you extra energy to swat away all of these negative thoughts so you don't downward spiral and end up going on Google, right? Be very protective of your energy. Understand that you have a limited amount of it. Right now, you don't have the energy of a regular person who can go talk to 100 people in a day and go to sleep at night fine because their nervous system winds down. If we try to do that, your heart rate may be increased. You may have insomnia. You may have a whole host of other symptoms, and that's just not conducive to recovery. What is conducive is putting that energy towards yourself. Now, another thing you want to do, and I've said this many times before, but just accepting that they likely won't understand what you're going through. That's one of the first steps to moving forward in your recovery, because the more you try to convince people that you have this, the more you try to get them to understand, a lot of times it can actually create conflict, and it can create this butting heads situation where you're trying to convince someone you have this thing and they're saying, no, you don't. Have you tried this and this? Have you tried walking outside? And you'll get a lot of gaslight. You may have a lot of these conversations that are not healthy for you right now, especially when your emotions are running high and you're having mood swings and you're more frustrated, you're more snappy, things like that. You want to avoid these kind of conflicts. So it doesn't do you any good long term trying to get someone to understand what you're going through unless they've been through it. Now, if someone has been through it, yes, of course, they're going to believe you. They don't even need any convincing, because all you have to do is say, hey, I'm having a flare-up, or I'm having an adjustment period. It's funny, in our programs, as soon as someone says AP, adjustment period, everybody knows what that means. Everybody understands what that means. They understand how it feels. They understand what it does to you, not just physically, but also mentally and emotionally. So they understand it very intimately. Most people on this planet won't understand how that feels. So there's no point in trying to convince them of that, right? Also, when it comes to standing up for yourself, the best thing you can do is prove all these people wrong, right? I remember my doctor, he'd look at me, not the doctor who helped me recover, but my family doctor, all these specialists, they'd look at me like I was crazy, right? And I remember thinking, wow, this person really doesn't believe I'm going through what I'm going through. They think it's all in my head. I'm going to prove them wrong, because once I figure out how to solve this, I'm going to come back here and look them in the eye and say, I'm recovered. And I did it on my own. So I never actually ended up going back there, because I don't hold any resentment towards them now, but that's something that drove me as well, is that the only way that I'm going to get people to understand that I'm not crazy is to actually recover from this thing. So when I recover, I remember my family said, hey, so you seem like a different person now that you recovered. What was it like going through that? And I told them, I'm the same Miguel that I am today than I was 6 years ago in that hospital. I was telling you that I feel all this stuff in my body. I was telling you that there was pain. And now that I'm normal, now I'm fit, I can work out, I can travel, I can do all these things, I run CFS recovery, I can tell you that I was not going crazy. So I feel like that was the only way for me to stand up for myself, is to prove them wrong, right? But that only happens when you accept the fact that most people won't ever understand, especially the people closest to you. So you have to advocate for yourself, and you have to do this for yourself. No one is going to come save you. And you might think that if you get empathy from, your parents, that, okay, now that they understand, they'll be able to pull you out of this, but then what, right? Even if they do understand, what advice are they going to give you if they've never actually recovered themselves? So what you want to focus your energy on is really finding something that supports your mission, something that supports your cause, your purpose, right? And don't waste any limited energy you have on things that don't do that, right? And if people tell you you're faking it, or people tell you it's all in your head, then you have to get to a place where it rolls off your shoulder, it rolls off your back, like, what's that saying? Like water off a duck's back. You can't let it affect you. And I almost go into these conversations already with the pre-confined notion that people won't understand. Even to this day, I have a book about how to recover from CFS. I have this YouTube channel with over 1,000 videos. I have a program where we've helped so many people all around the world come back from this. I've spoke about this topic in front of crowds of people, and still, I have a hard time explaining what this stuff really is, right? And I could explain it in concise ways. I can expand it and do a 5-minute talk. I could do a 20-minute talk. To the average person, they will not understand what's going on. So the only way I could really put my stake in the ground and show people the magnitude of this illness, that this thing is real, is by recovering, by getting to where I am today. So that way I could pull up pictures from the past and see, this is where I was. Look at this. I'll go on my phone and say, yeah, look at this. I was in a wheelchair. Look, I couldn't walk. Look, there's me hooked up to the IVs in the hospital. And then it'll click for them. Then it'll go, oh my goodness, I didn't know it was that bad. Even after I just said I was bedridden for multiple months. So it doesn't really click with people until they see visual proof of the before and after, right? And I found that the best way to stand up for myself, because you can say whatever you want. People most likely will not understand. At least I haven't met a person who really understood what this is like. What they will understand though is that you're dealing with something that you're trying to solve. You haven't found a solution yet, or maybe you have. Maybe you're watching this YouTube channel, maybe you're inside the Recovery Academy and you're making massive progress and they're starting to see that change in you. I've found that's when people start to believe that, okay, there is something going on here. When we have people come into the academy, for example, and they're bedridden or they're housebound and they can't even leave the house without their heart rate going to like 140. And then a month later, they're able to drive and they're able to go to a mall or able to sit in a restaurant. That is a drastic difference that their family is seeing. And that's what makes it real. When they go from very debilitated to a little bit more functional, when people see drastic change and it's predictable change, right? They implemented certain things to get this certain result. That means there was something actually going wrong. And I'd say that's the best way to stand up for yourself. Now, you can pull up all these articles of how many people have CFS. You can pull up all these studies, all this research. You can give that to family, which, yeah, that will show them that there clearly is something going on here, that this thing you're dealing with is real. However, I think the ultimate goal is to not put your energy into doing all this research to prove what you're dealing with is real, because the bottom line is you know it's real. You know it's real because you're dealing with it. Any extra energy you do have, put it into yourself and your own recovery. By watching these videos, by getting extra help, by implementing these things, use your energy for that. And don't waste your energy on trying to convince people that what you're going through is real. I know we've jumped all over the place with this topic, but I just wanted to share my approach of how to stand up for yourself and really how to navigate people not understanding what you're going through. So if you found this video helpful, if you did want to be a part of a community of people who do understand what you're going through, who will not question if this thing is real or not because they've actually been through this themselves, they've been bedridden, they've been housebound, they've been couchbound, and now they have their lives back or they're getting their lives back. If you wanted to be in that environment, click the link down below. We have something called a Recovery Academy where we can help you navigate this very confusing and complex recovery journey, and we can help you implement the things we share on this channel, but for your specific situation. Because recovery, there's so many things you could do. There's so many things that are ideal not to do. And it can get confusing knowing which levers to pull, what to implement at what time in your recovery. Whether you're bedridden, whether you're couchbound, whether you're housebound, whether you're semi-functional, we have solutions to ultimately get you to that North Star of thriving health, which if you're watching this channel right now, I'm assuming that you want something more out of life, and that's why you're here looking for solutions. So if you wanted some extra help, I'll leave that link down below. You can learn more about the program. But other than that, always remember, you are a thriver and you are just one mind shift away from living a life with thriving health. I'll see you in the next video.
I'd say that CFS recovery is absolutely the real deal.
I actually felt like somebody had an answer, like somebody explained what was going on, and it all clicked.